If you stop watching before the end, you might hear the slow echo of a basketball bouncing somewhere near you tonight, because this story is not just an old rumor or a spooky tale for attention. It is a warning connected to a real place that still exists behind an abandoned high school in a quiet town in Illinois, USA, where an outdoor basketball court stands forgotten, cracked, and rusting, yet strangely untouched by time. During the day, the court looks harmless and almost sad, with faded white lines barely visible on the concrete, broken fences leaning inward, and chain nets hanging loosely from bent rims, swaying slightly even when there is no wind. But when night falls and the clock passes midnight, the atmosphere around the court changes completely, as if the place itself is holding its breath. Locals say the air becomes unnaturally cold, the silence feels heavy and oppressive, and even the streetlights nearby seem weaker, flickering as though they are afraid to shine too brightly on what might still be playing there. Back in 1996, this court was not abandoned at all. It was alive with energy, especially because of one player named Jason Miller, a high school senior known throughout the town for his incredible talent and obsessive dedication to basketball. Jason believed basketball was his only way out of a small, forgettable town, and every dream he revolved around the sound of ball hitting concrete and the clean snap of a perfect shot through the net. Coaches admired him, classmates respected him, and younger kids watched him like a hero. But what most people did not realize was how deeply afraid Jason was a failure, how the idea of missing his chance haunted him every single day. On the night he died, Jason stayed late after practice, long after his teammates had gone home and the building lights were turned off, choosing instead to train alone on the outdoor court under the dim yellow glow of aging floodlights. Neighbors later recalled hearing the steady rhythm of a basketball echoing through the darkness, a constant dribble that went on for hours, mixed with the sharp sound of shots hitting the rim again and again, as if Jason was pushing himself beyond exhaustion, determined to make every mistake disappear through practice. Around midnight, a strange feeling settled over the area, and people living nearby reported that the night suddenly went quiet, unnaturally quiet, before a single, powerful sound broke the silence, like the echo of a forceful dunk slamming into a rim with enough strength to shake the metal chains. After that, there was nothing. No more dribbling, no voices, no footsteps, just silence so deep it felt wrong. When morning came, a school janitor walking behind the building noticed court lights were still on and decided to investigate, only to find Jason's body lying motionless at the exact center of the court, his eyes open and fixed on a hoop above him, his hands gripping a basketball, so tightly that it had to be pried-free. What disturbed everyone was not just that Jason was dead, but how little sense the scene made, because there were no visible injuries, no signs of fall or fight, and no explanation for why the basket above him was still slowly swaying, the chain softly clinking as if someone had scored only moments earlier. The official investigation ruled it a tragic accident caused by overexertion or a sudden medical condition, and the case was quickly closed, but rumors spread to the town like a sickness, especially after people began noticing details that could not be explained, such as the basketball found in Jason's hands, still being warm despite the cold night, or faint shoe marks appear on the court long after it had been sealed off. The school quietly shut down the court, locking the gates and cutting power to lights, hoping the story would fade away. But instead, it only grew darker. Within weeks, security guards reported hearing the sound of a ball bouncing behind the school during night shifts, even though the court was empty and locked, while others claimed they heard the metallic rattled chains shaking violently, like someone hanging from the rim in frustration. Some nights, passing drivers swore they saw a tall figure standing near the three-point line under flickering lights that were no longer supposed to work, its posture tense, head lowered, as if preparing for a final shot. Fear spread quietly, and teachers, police officers, and maintenance staff began refusing to go near the court after dark, each of them claiming the same unsettling feeling, that someone was still there, still playing, still practicing, unwilling or unable to leave. Over time, the story of Jason Miller stopped being told as a simple tragedy and became something far more disturbing, because no matter how many locks were added or how many warning signs were posted, the sounds never truly stopped, and the sense that the court was no longer just a place, but a prison for a restless spirit desperate to finish one last game, continued to haunt the town, setting the stage for events that would make the legend of the haunted basketball court far more terrifying in the years to come. After Jason Miller's death, The town tried to move on, but the basketball court refused to be forgotten. And with each passing year, the strange events surrounding it became more frequent, more aggressive, and impossible to ignore. At first, the disturbances were subtle enough that people could explain them away if they wanted to. Security guards doing late patrols behind the school reported hearing a single basketball bounce echo through the darkness, then stop, as if someone had caught it mid-dribble, while janitors claimed the chain net sometimes rattled softly even when there was no wind. But no one spoke openly about it, because admitting fear made the stories feel real. As months passed, the activity grew stronger, and the court developed a reputation that spread far beyond the town itself, attracting curious teenagers, paranormal enthusiasts, and thrill-seekers who believed they could prove the legends wrong. Many of them came late at night, standing outside the locked fence, filming with their phones and laughing nervously, until the laughter died when they heard the unmistakable sound of a ball bouncing on concrete from the center of an empty court. Those who stayed longer described an overwhelming sense of being watched, as if invisible eyes were tracking every step they took, and some swore they felt the ground vibrate faintly beneath their feet, like footsteps running just out of sight. By the early 2000s, police reports began to mention unexplained incidents near the court, including alarms triggered for no reason, lights turning on by themselves despite the power being cut, and motion sensors activating repeatedly without recording any visible movement. One officer, who later resigned, claimed that during a routine check at around 2 a.m., he heard rapid dribbling followed by the sound of sneakers screeching across the court, as if a full-speed game was happening just beyond his flashlight's reach. And when he shone the beam toward the hoop, the chain suddenly snapped upward, jerking violently as though someone had just slammed a dunk with impossible force. The officer ran, leaving his flashlight behind, and refused to ever return. As the legend grew, stories began to surface about people who accepted what locals called a challenge, an unspoken rule that if you brought a basketball onto court after midnight, something would notice you. Most of these stories ended with shaken visitors who fled in terror, but few were far worse, involving people who left the court changed, silent, distant, and unwilling to talk about what they saw. Then in 2012, the court attracted the attention of 3 college students who believed the entire legend was nothing more than mass hysteria fueled by an old tragedy and a decaying building. Armed with a camera, extra batteries, and the confidence that comes from disbelief, they decided to enter the court at exactly 1:30 a.m. to record proof that nothing supernatural existed there. At first, the footage showed nothing unusual. The empty court bathed in weak moonlight, the cracked concrete, the rusted hoops, and the students joking nervously to keep the tension away. But as the minutes passed, the atmosphere shifted, and the audio picked up a faint, rhythmic sound that none of them seemed to notice at first, a slow, deliberate dribble echoing from somewhere near the center of the court. When one of the students finally asked if anyone else heard that, the ball rolled into view on camera, moving on its own, bouncing once, then again, perfectly timed as if guided by an invisible hand. Nervous laughter filled the recording as one of them tried to explain it away, calling it a trick or a prank. But before he could finish speaking, the court lights flickered on violently, flooding the area with harsh white light that revealed absolutely no one standing there. A second later, the sound of a powerful dunk exploded to the night, so loud it distorted the audio and made the camera shake, and the chain snapped upward with such force that they appeared ready to break. Panic took over as the students backed away, shouting at each other to run, but the dribbling grew faster, circling them, echoing from every direction at once, as if something was moving at impossible speed around the court. The camera fell to ground, still recording, capturing only blurred movement, heavy breathing, and the sound of frantic footsteps before everything went silent except for a low, rasping breath close to the microphone. Then came a whisper, slow and filled with exhaustion and rage, words that froze the blood of anyone who later heard the recording. One last game. The footage ended abruptly, cutting to static, and when police investigated the next morning, they found the camera lying at the center of the court, cracked but intact, along with 2 terrified students wandering near the school in complete shock. The 3rd student was gone, leaving behind no footprints, no blood, no sign that he had ever been there at all. The official explanation claimed he had panicked and run off into the woods, but no search ever found him, and surviving students refused to speak publicly, their faces pale and hollow whenever the court was mentioned. After that night, The court's reputation shifted from haunted to cursed, and locals began warning outsiders to stay away, because whatever had once been Jason Miller was no longer just a restless spirit. It was something bound to the game, fueled by obsession, anger, and an endless need to play, growing stronger every time someone stepped onto that court after midnight. After the disappearance of the third student in 2012, the haunted basketball court stopped being a place of curiosity and became a place of fear so intense that even mentioning it felt like an invitation to something listening. And from that point on, the town treated the court less like abandoned property and more like a sealed grave. Police officially closed the area, placing new locks on the gates and warning signs along the fence. But the restrictions did nothing to stop what happened after midnight, because whatever haunted the court no longer cared about barriers meant for the living. Residents living closest to school began reporting the same nightmare over and over again. They would wake suddenly at exactly 12:33 a.m. to the sound of basketball bouncing outside their window, slow at first, then faster, then stopping abruptly, followed by the faint metallic rattle of chains, as if someone was hanging from the rim, breathing heavily in frustration. Some people claimed they saw the court lights turn on by themselves, even though the power lines had been disconnected years earlier, bathing the empty court in a cold white glow that made the shadows stretch unnaturally long, while others swore they saw a tall figure pacing back and forth beneath the hoop, its movement sharp and repetitive, like a player stuck in an endless warm-up. Over time, a pattern emerged that no one wanted to acknowledge. The activity spiked whenever someone entered the court after midnight with basketball, because locals had learned, often too late, that the spirit bound a court did not appear unless it sensed the game was about to begin. Survivors, those few who ran fast enough, describe an overwhelming pressure the moment the ball touched the ground, as if the air thickened and the court itself closed in around them, trapping sound, light, and movement inside its boundaries. They spoke of hearing footsteps sprinting just behind them, breath hot against their necks, and a voice whispering instructions, corrections, and challenges in a tone that was both exhausted and furious, like a coach who refused to accept defeat. One man claimed that when he took a single shot toward the hoop as a joke, the ball was swatted out of the air by something invisible, hitting the concrete with enough force to crack it, followed by laughter that echoed too long to be human. As the years passed, disappearances near the court increased, though none were officially linked, because admitting the truth would mean accepting that the court was no longer just haunted by Jason Miller's ghost, but controlled by something shaped by his obsession, his fear of failure, and his refusal to stop playing. Paranormal investigators who attempted overnight sessions reported equipment malfunctioning, batteries draining instantly, and audio recordings filled with the sound of dribbling layered over distorted breathing and whispered phrases like, "Again, don't miss," and "one more shot," repeated until files cut to static. The most disturbing account came from a former school maintenance worker who ignored warnings and entered the court one night to retrieve old equipment, bringing a basketball with him without thinking. He later told police that the moment he stepped onto the court, the gate slammed shut behind him, the lights ignited, and the sound of sneakers scraping against concrete surrounded him, though he could see no one. He claimed the ball was ripped from his hands and forced to bounce on its own, circling him faster and faster, while an invisible presence drove him backward toward the hoop, whispering relentlessly that the game wasn't over, that quitting was the same as losing. He survived only because the sun began to rise, and with the first hint of daylight, the pressure vanished, the lights shut off, and he collapsed, sobbing, at the center of the court, swearing he felt hands release him at the final second. After that incident, the town council voted to permanently seal the area, surrounding the court with tall metal fencing and concrete barriers. But even that did not end the phenomenon, because at night, people could still hear the game continuing on the other side, echoing into the darkness like a replay that refused to end. Today, locals say the court feeds on challengers, growing stronger each time someone accepts the invitation to play, and they warn that Jason's spirit does not want revenge, sympathy, or peace. He wants competition. According to the legend, if you step onto court after midnight and take 3 shots, you are no longer a visitor but player, and the rules change instantly, because if you miss, the court will not let you leave, and if you make the shot, the game only becomes harder, faster, and more violent, until you are too exhausted to continue. Those who vanish are said to be still there, running drills under flickering lights, replaying the same moments over and over again, trapped in a never-ending game where quitting is impossible, and losing means being erased from the outside world entirely. And if you ever find yourself awake late at night, Hearing a basketball bounce slowly outside when no one is there, remember this warning, because a haunted basketball court is always looking for its next player, and once it chooses you, the final whistle never blows.